Andrei Arlovski versus Tanner Boser. We got minus 255 on Boser and plus 215 on Andrei Arlovski. And this is an intriguing fight just based on both of their styles, considering how volume heavy these guys are in terms of the amount of, how much they move and how much they're able to really cover the cage, especially at heavyweight. So let's start off with Andrei Arlovski. Crazy the type of career that Andrei Arlovski has had. People were ready to write this guy off all the way back in 2011 when he suffered, four straight losses, three of them getting pretty much brutally knocked out. And then in that amount of time, he was able to put together four straight wins. He had a no contest sprinkled in there against Tim Sylvia for an illegal soccer kick. Then he went to WSOF, fought Anthony Johnson at heavyweight, which was so weird that Anthony Johnson was willing to go all the way up there. Lost the decision there, and then was able to string together two straight wins and found himself back in the UFC, where he was able to go on a 4-fight winning streak over Brennan Schaub, Bigfoot Silva, Travis Brown, and then Frank Mir. And he was pretty much one fight away from a title shot until he ran into Stipe Miocic, who then went on to get a title shot against Fabricio Verdum and claim the heavyweight title. So just think about if you went out there and actually beat Stipe Miocic. You're talking about Andrei Arlovski getting a title shot in 2016. I don't think a lot of people would have predicted that, back in 2011 when people were just telling this guy to already retire. But here he is, So after that Stipe Miocic loss, he went on a 5-fight losing streak, managed to pull up 2 decision victories over Stefan Struve and Junior Albini, then lost 4 straight, 3 technically, considering that Walt Harris tested positive for steroids, and that fight got changed to a no contest. And now in his last 3, he's 2-1. He had pretty much a picture-perfect performance against Ben Rothwell, where he went out there and outstruck him by a large amount. I just want to confirm that number because I remember seeing it and thinking, I was like, wow, it was that much. But once you really watch the fight, you truly see it. He outstruck him 152-70, so more than doubled the output that was coming back from Ben Rothwell's side. Then the Jairzinho Rozenstruik fight, we know what happened there. Jairzinho just has renegade bombs in his hands, and he landed that beautiful counter left hook that pretty much face planted Andrei Arlovski 30 seconds into the fight. And then after that went out there and beat a up and coming prospect in Philippe Lins, who a lot of people were confident in and who was also a minus 200 favorite going into that fight. So that's something to keep in mind there. Arlovski showed in that fight though that he can still hang with some of these guys that don't necessarily have the knockout power to get him out of there quickly. And even with that said, you got to look into his chin durability. So the last time he was knocked out before Jairzinho Rozenstruik was Francis Ngannou, but since then, so that was 2017 January, and it took until just close to 3 years later for him to get knocked out again. And he fought some heavy punches in between that amount of time as well. And then in the Philippe Lins fight, he showed a great amount of durability and took some huge shots from Philippe Lins, but he was still in it and, pretty much ready to fight for that full 15 minutes and still came out with a decision victory there. So he looked good in that fight. He still mixes it up well. He moves well, especially at his current age of 30, 41, I should say. I don't even know why I said 30, but, 41 years old at heavyweight to be moving as much as he is, to be as flexible as he is, still getting leg kicks up there like it's nothing, moving well, leg kicking as well. It's not just all hands. When he's just crashing forward with hands, it's just not hands. He still has kicks that he likes to back it up with, try to switch it up with. It's pretty obvious that he likes to keep most fights on the feet. So this is pretty much a tailor-made matchup for him in terms of, going in there with somebody else who's pretty keen on keeping the fight on the feet. But Arlovski has really, still impressed me. And a lot of people did not think he'd be fighting in 2020, let alone 2021 coming right up, that he's still going to be, up there in the heavyweight division and having some good performances and pulling off victories over guys that are much younger than him who seem to, they were favorites going into that fight. So this Tanner Boser fight, let's talk about Tanner Boser a little bit, who's, only a couple fights into his UFC career, started off with a victory over Daniel Spitz, then lost to Cyril Gane, who, that's a tough fight to go with because Cyril Gane is pretty much Tanner Boser, but much more explosive, much more volume, much more power. So it's it was a tough test for Tanner Boser to go out there and get a victory there. Then we see Tanner Boser go out there and knock out Philippe Lins after he lost to Andrei Arlovski, I believe. Yeah, that was only about a month and a half afterwards for Philippe Lins, where he got knocked out by Tanner Boser. And then he goes out there and finishes Rafael Pessoa with a beautiful, it was like a a punch that kind of pretty much landed in Peso's eye and rendered him defenseless. He dropped to the ground, and we saw Tanner Boser go out there and pretty much ground and pound him to a finish halfway through the second round. Now, here with Andrei Arlovski, I think a lot of people are going to be banging on Tanner Boser to go out there and win this fight via inside the distance. There are no current lines on that prop, but I personally like the decision prop a little bit more. But with that said, it's still a close fight. I don't mind the minus 250 line. I still think that Boser does win. His consistency and willingness to go out there and continuously look for leg kicks really allows him to open up his hands and the rest of his work. Whether it's the jab to the body and then coming with the overhand right afterwards, but the leg kicks are the main goal for his game plan, in my opinion. I think he's going to be very successful with that here against Andrei Arlovski. Again, Arlovski likes to move a lot, has good footwork, but I think that if Boser targets those legs nice and early, he should be able to slow down Arlovski a little bit and really start to do work with his hands. I am buying into the durability of Arlovski, which is why I would rather go with Boser to win by decision rather than inside the distance. And Boser isn't, he's not notorious for actually getting finishes. He's more of a decision guy. He does have a win via leg kicks that took almost 4 rounds of work to actually get that finish. Keep in mind, but then obviously the Philippe Lins was a little bit of an outlier for him to land such a beautiful shot. It was an overhand right to the just back of the ear of Philippe Lins that put him on Queer Street, and then we saw him go out there and put his hands together. Beautiful combination to finish that fight. And then the Rafael Pessoa one, I think it was just a bullseye shot with that left hook that he landed right on the eye of Rafael Pessoa that pretty much rendered him defenseless, and then he was able to get the ground and pound there. But I don't think that people should buy into the quick finishes of Tanner Boser going into this Arlovski fight, because I do think that Arlovski, he moves a lot better than these guys. I think Arlovski throws a little bit more than Philippe Lins does as well, so that's something that Boser is going to have to worry about here. But Boser, in my opinion, throws a little bit more than Philippe does. He sets his shots up very well. A lot of people are saying that he should go down to light heavyweight just based on his size, and the fact is that he cuts no weight to get to heavyweight, and he seems like roughly only 20 or so pounds away from that the light heavyweight limit. So he weighed in at 235 against Rafael Pessoa, 235 against Philippe Lins as well too. He was 246 against Cyril Gane, but it seems like he's slowly starting to come down in weight. Another guy that this kind of reminds me of is Chris Daukaus, who won a couple weeks ago. He is slimming the hell down, and it's definitely working out for his speed and his movement. So I think Tanner Boser is kind of taking the same type of approach. Maybe not go down to 205, but use the lack of weight that you have and use the speed advantages that you get from the lack of weight, and try to go out there and have solid performances against your opponents. So again, Arlovski makes fights closer than they should be, hence why he won that Philippe Lins fight. But I think that Boser has a better overall game than Philippe Lins. Again, centered around the leg kicks, which allows him to open up his hands, and I truly think that's going to be for the key here for Tanner Boser. I like Boser to win this fight by decision. I think he has a solid shot here. Minus 250, I don't mind that spot. I think he's a solid parlay piece, if anything. Maybe take the shot on him straight up at minus 250. Not a bad idea either. But again, Arlovski does make fights a little bit closer than they are. But I truly believe that Boser has all the chops to make it not as close as Arlovski has done with like the Philippe Lins fights or any of the other fights in his past. So I'm going with Tanner Boser to win this fight via decision, and this is a solid spot for him to get a legit name under his belt, and really announce himself in the heavyweight division as well, and distance himself a little bit more from that Cyril Gane loss that he took in his second fight in the UFC. So, lastly, once again, I'm going Tanner Boser to win this fight via decision.